They are respectively the president and the vice president of IP, the Instituto de Pesquisas Ecológicas in Brazil. Cláudio and Suzana came to UF after having prior careers. Cláudio as a businessman and Suzana as a designer. And they completely gave that up to come back to graduate school. And Cláudio did his PhD here in wildlife. He was focusing on research on one important species in the Atlantic forest. And Suzana did a master's in environmental education here, and later she went on to do her PhD in Brazil. So their work evolved from a research focus to a much broader picture about how to make change and investing in capacity building and basically creating their own university graduate programs. And they literally told us that this was a franchise of TCD. So this, and we actually went down and helped them, consulted on the curriculum. I've been a guest lecturer. So what they've done is really quite interesting and very directly tied. Even though they were here in the early years, we hadn't really figured everything out yet. Stellar people. So I'm going to turn it over to Suzana and Cláudio to tell us a little bit more about your journey.
Okay, thank you very much, Marianne. I've never been called a stellar, so I think this is the first innovation in my life. So thank you very much for this beautiful word.
Well deserved.
I have to say that we came back from UF very inspired, especially with the interdisciplinary approach that all the programs that we participated had. And it was unusual in Brazil. And we came with knowledge that was absolutely new to the world. I mean, this was the beginning of conservation biology. And I myself was, I had the opportunity, the privilege of also learning environmental education in a very neat and new way, especially for Brazil. So we wanted to share this. And what I thought of sharing with you is that if we have a conservation program for education in Brazil now, it was out of frustration because we tried very hard to partner with Brazilian universities. But the machine, the whole mechanism is so complex, and they seemed very interested, but at the same time, not interested enough to make it happen. And so Cláudio will continue on this.
Not continue, but I want to say that in the same direction, we were coming with a TCD in mind, and we couldn't find TCD or our program, University of Florida program in Brazil, so it was a frustration, and so the decision was we have to do something that will be different in Brazil, not connected to regular universities that will teach you a regular ecology course, and we wanted a totally different thing, the thing that we got from Florida.
Yeah, and so we began with short courses because at the time I didn't have a PhD, and our team, only Cláudio had. So Cláudio was like the main guide, but we needed, in order to be able to offer graduate program, we had to have more than 10 PhDs within the institution to apply to the Ministry of Education. And that was when, after we had this number, even more, now I think we have about 14 or 15. But at the time, as soon as we got the 10, we applied for the Ministry of Education. And to our surprise, they approved us. And so when it was time for us to put together what we wanted, what is our dream program for a master's, we decided to call people that we thought spoke the same language. So people from Florida came, Columbia University, and other Brazilian organizations and universities. So we called people that we could trust, that would think alike in the way, what I mean is think in interdisciplinary ways. And also another aspect that we thought was extremely important was social and environmental areas, fields not being separated. We wanted social and environment to be treated together. And now I think the newest challenge that Cláudio is bringing with more emphasis is the economic portion. The reason I see this so important is that just by believing in the intrinsic value of the Amazon or any other ecosystem has not taken us further. I mean, it hasn't been so successful as we would like. Even sharing all our passion, it is not enough. So Cláudio can speak more about what he thinks about the economics if you're interested. But so just going back a little bit, so when we put together the program, what in 3 days we designed what we thought that it would, like, what would I have wanted to have had in my master's program. And of course you have all the rigid system of the Brazilian ministry, but we learned through, in fact, through TCD and Marianne's class, how to bypass a little bit. So we put together a course called Seminar. You know, seminar, what is seminar? We put everything that we wanted inside. How to deal with conflicts in the community. Nobody teaches you this, and this wouldn't be accepted in the ecology course, or how to evaluate social work. And so everything that we thought was important for a professional that is going to be dealing with the complexities of conservation, we decided to put into the seminar. So you have all the disciplines that are mandate to an ecology course, but we opened the fan, as we say in Portuguese, o leque of alternatives, so that we could offer what we believed to be essential. And the nice thing is that these things change. You know, climate change wasn't there when we put it together, I don't know how many years ago, but now it is. So, you know, you keep on evolving and making it more pertinent to the time that we're living.
Another interesting part of the story is that we didn't have the professors in the beginning. And when I went back, I went to University of São Paulo as a visiting professor. And in 2 years later, the bureaucracy of the University of São Paulo finally, I gave up to do it inside master's programs or a graduate program inside of the University of São Paulo. And I quit. I said, I'm leaving and I am going to do it by myself, because here it's not going to work. And then some of the graduate students left with us, my graduate students, the ones that were in my lab. And they said, oh, if you go, we go with you. So they left. They didn't leave the University of São Paulo. They finished their undergraduate courses there, but they came to work with us at EP. And then I more or less helped them to get to go to graduate programs in different parts of the world, where I thought that would be good for the creation of a graduate program we wanted. And in fact, Laurie Cullen came to Florida many times, and some of them went to England.
To England, yeah.
To work with Richard Bodmer, that is a former professor at the Center for Latin American Studies. So we helped them to move in this in the world of graduate studies. So years later, we had 10 PhDs in the organization. All of them started as undergraduates, and they all became graduates, but with little inbreeding, because we helped them to go to different places. But the basis was University of Florida of all this.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how, where you want us to focus more, but I think it is important to mention the economic portion, because this is what you read. And what we have been talking, especially to business people, is that we need a new, I have no idea, Cláudio thinks that he knows, I'm not sure, but I don't know exactly how to implement this, but we need a new paradigm, a totally new paradigm. It's a new mind frame on how you look at the Amazon. It's not, some of you, there was one comment about Manaus being a disaster and so forth. We don't want Manaus. It's not Manaus model at all. It is like the forest having value. And so if we, what do I envision? And maybe Cláudio has a different vision, is to, how can we bring technology and knowledge, and so that instead of knocking down the trees for soy and cattle, the forest would be more valuable if it was standing up. I know there was REDD+, and it didn't work so much as we wanted. If REDD+ had worked, I think it would have been a beautiful and brilliant alternative. But the world didn't buy the idea so much. We're living in a world that is not generous. Everybody's thinking on their own, survival and their own benefits and so forth. And so that's why we're thinking of bringing economics into the general way of thought, so that we can have more chances of protecting the forest in a more effective way.
So if I could just ask a question at this point. You have a master's degree that combines business with conservation already, right? So you're talking about going beyond that. And maybe you could talk about that, what that is.
Yeah, you see, in Amazonia, there are some centers, science centers or technology centers, but nobody's there. I mean, it was built and it doesn't work. Our dream is to bring people, knowledgeable people. And I know we're going to have a big issue, because people will always think that we're taking the knowledge out of the country, and we're going to be, there's a lot of xenophobia in Brazil, and that we're going to sell our richness to outsiders. It is happening already. We are unfortunately depleting our forests for cattle and soy, and nobody's gaining anything except the owners of the farms, or the people who market the meat and so forth. So we had one experience that was quite surprising. Yeah, that was at the World Economic Forum. We brought this idea, and to our surprise, lots of business people were really interested. They said, and in the end, everybody was anguished, because how can we do it? And so we suggested to put together a workshop to think about it. How can it happen? We don't have the answers. We have lots of questions, and we have like a vision that it can happen. If you ask me how exactly, I'm not sure. I don't know. But it's a new kind of idea that can bring new light to something that is right now not promising at all.
And Marianne, your question. I have some examples in Brazil that when research combined with another thing evolved into a new economic development. And are not the ones I would like to have as an example, but I can tell you, we build airplanes in Brazil. We don't have a car factories, but we build airplanes. And behind the airplane production in Brazil, there is a university, the Technological Institute of Aeronautics, which is one of the best schools in engineering schools in the country. So we also, why we are so powerful, our agribusiness is so powerful, because years ago, the government got a loan from the World Bank and sent researchers all over the world to learn how to do PhDs in agriculture, including University of Florida. Many of them came to University of Florida. When I arrived in Florida in '84 for my master's, there were, I think, 70 families of Brazilians of doing PhD in agriculture there. And the result of this massive investment in graduate students in an agricultural area was a major change in Brazilian agriculture, not to the direction I would like to, but it changed. And also the forestry sector in Brazil, paper and pulp, is huge. And is huge because I found out this recently. It also started in Florida because one of the big companies in the beginning of this sector years ago, one of these entrepreneurs sent his son to University of Florida with the mission of turning eucalyptus into paper and pulp. Until the 70s, we could not do paper and pulp with eucalyptus. Was not in the direction I would like to see, but it also worked. So we have a huge agricultural sector, a huge paper and pulp sector. We have airplane companies. What is the lesson behind this? Is knowledge, is research. And so, but what we need is, in my view, is, and we are trying to doing our best with our school, but this is small. We need a big movement, enterprise yeah. With professors and researchers from all over the world, working collaboratively to save the Amazon through the knowledge of the Amazon. Instead of cutting the forest, we can turn knowledge into economic gains. And what I say, based on a researcher from University of Harvard, he's from Venezuela, in fact, Professor Hossman, he has this fantastic story of development Lego. He says that development works like a Lego. You know Lego, this kids think to build the blocks. And what he says, what he says is that development works like this. So if you have a small box of Lego, you can do little things, only cubes. But if you have a big box, you can do airplanes, boats, everything. So we need to, where is our big Lego box? It's not in computer chips, it's in our biodiversity. So we need to use our big Lego box, our biodiversity. Computer chips is the Lego box of California, it's not the Lego box of Brazil. And together with the communities, or the Brazilian communities in the Amazon, build this new economy to save the forest and at the same time get some development in the country.
Cláudio has been talking in his, when he talks publicly, he says that the real Minister of Finance in Brazil, of Economics, is the Minister of Environment, because the biggest richness of Brazil is biodiversity and not money. Because money everybody has, but biodiversity.
Our treasure is biodiversity, yeah. Not other things.
But it's not seen like this.
No.
So we have tons of challenges to make this happen, but at least it's a new idea, I think, that needs that is worth exploring, and we'll have tons of resistance. One of you mentioned, what about the top down and bottom up? We at IPE always have worked with communities in a very, very inclusive way. I think to bring something like this into the Amazon, it wouldn't be bottom up, because not even us know how to do it. So we have to have a group of entrepreneurs and a group of people that are interested from all sectors, including the community. So I wanted just to make sure that you would understand this, because we by no means wish to impose anything, but it has to, we need to bring more alternatives into the arena. Otherwise, we're seeing depletion. This month, it was record of deforestation in Brazil. So, of course, there's a big change in politics, so everybody's thinking that everything can be done. But I'm not going to enter into this because it's too freaky. But but the fact is that if there is money, at least we might be heard, which right now we're talking to ourselves. You know,
well, and the frontier, as Marianne knows well, the frontier is expanding. The regular, normal frontier keep expanding everywhere.